this virus.
Tonight, fighting on all fronts, how Texas is losing ground in the battle against COVID-19. Plus,
we're going to have some decline in economic activity because of all of this, whether we lock down or not.
Shutdown or not, why economists say the surge in cases means a slower recovery. And preparing for the next pandemic, what experts say Texas must do to be ready for that next crisis. Capital Tonight starts right now. Thanks for joining us here on Capital Tonight. I'm Karina Kling. Splashed on the front page of newspapers across the state, warnings of the growing COVID-19 threat in Texas. Everywhere from Beaumont to Laredo, Fort Worth to San Antonio, a similar story. And with it, city and county leaders are repeating the same message.
We all need to work a lot harder to get this positivity rate down.
Now is the time to overcome fatigue, to be selfless.
This is simply not the time for gatherings and get-togethers with people you don't share a home with.
The mayor of Fort Worth tested positive for the virus today. It comes as Tarrant County set a record high for new daily cases with more than 2,000. The state also reaching a record high yesterday with close to 11,000 new cases reported. Today's numbers dipped a bit to about 8,500, but hospitalizations continue to creep up, and Texas is nearing 20,000 deaths according to state data. Even though infections are rising, Governor Greg Abbott is making it clear there will not be another lockdown. He's sticking with his COVID-19 reopening plan, even as other states shut down. Abbott and other Republican leaders have emphasized the need to balance public health with the state's economic recovery. Since September, the governor has relied on a plan that reduces reopenings regionally based on hospitalizations. But public health experts caution against that because hospitalizations provide a delayed look into the state of an outbreak. One of Abbott's own medical advisors told us earlier this week more restrictions are needed right now.
This is going to be a tough couple of months ahead, and we really do need to think about some further steps.
Earlier today, I spoke with an economist about what another shutdown could mean for the state's economic recovery. Dr. Michael Sadler, welcome back to the program. Thanks for being with us. I know it's been a while since I last spoke with you, but given the rising cases and hospitalizations, what would it mean if the state's economy were to shut back down, if businesses were to shut back down?
Well, it's going to result in a decline in economic activity. It's not purely a function of the lockdowns, although that's obviously an important factor, but just the fact that the infection rate is going back up again and people are going to be concerned about going out and contacting people with the virus, that's enough to slow down economic activity. We have lots of evidence to support that now. And a formal lockdown will typically be more effective in restricting the spread of the virus. But until we really get that under control, in the absence of this vaccine being rolled out for most of the population, which is months off, in the absence of that, we're going to have some decline in economic activity because of all of this, whether we lock down or not.
Yeah, that's a good segue to this next question that I had for you. Weekly jobless claims have been dropping, but the unemployment rate ticked back up in September. Is there really a way to gauge the economic recovery picture until the virus is under control?
Well, we can sort of see the patterns, and as waves come and go, we see economic data increasing and decreasing. The unemployment rate is responding to what's going on with the pandemic quite apparently, and we can see that. So as long as the pandemic continues to be a problem and the virus continues to spread, it's going to be a struggle to recover back to the trajectory that we were on before this all started.
You had talked several times about a U-shape versus V-shape versus a W-shape. What do you see it at this point?
Well, we may have talked about this one before in the past, but the prevailing wisdom right now in terms of the letter-shaped recovery is the K-shaped recovery, which means we have two separate recoveries going on, two segments of the population. The economy has essentially been bifurcated into mostly larger firms that are doing quite well in many cases and have managed to continue to succeed. We've seen the stock market continues to improve. And then there's the downward part of the K, that's the retail businesses, food services, things like that. Those have been dramatically impacted, and there's no real indication of when we can expect that to come back, if at all, to the full extent. You're hearing all kinds of forecasts about how 50% of those businesses may never come back.
Right.
That's a really tough thing to gauge at this point, but clearly there's going to be an important impact down the line, and it's going to take a long time to recover from this, even after we get control of the virus.
Well, Dr. Sadler, the governor's been trying to balance all of this. What's your take? Is there a good balance between public health and the economy that can keep people safe that's not being addressed?
Well, the evidence shows, and you'll find most economists in agreement with this, I think, that the places where the economy has been impacted the least were the ones that took the hard medicine at the beginning and shut things down enough to get that infection rate back down again. Many countries in Europe have done that. There are other examples around the world. Then many of them had a second wave, and as in Europe, we know that, but that second wave was beginning from such a low base that as they get their second wave under control, they're still not going to wind up in the long-term predicament that we're in. So there needs to be more of an emphasis on tamping this down, right? Because people are not going to be confident about engaging in economic activity, regardless of whether there's a lockdown, until we do get that under control. And we've got a ways to go.
People won't go out and spend. Lastly, stimulus talks continue to stall in Washington. What would it mean for the economy to get another relief package?
It's going to be extremely important, and it depends on exactly where that's targeted. We've had a myriad of different programs implemented by both the federal government and by the Federal Reserve, and many of those are not going to be maintained, I believe. But come December 26th, the unemployment benefit extensions are going to expire. And therefore, everyone who's been receiving the additional $300 per week, that was the extra 13 weeks of those benefits, plus the pandemic unemployment assistance program, which was about people in the gig economy, et cetera, that are not normally eligible, all that gets cut off and their spending power is going to decline. That's millions of people. And when their spending power declines, that may have a knock-on effect on the whole economy. And so it would be, I believe, in our interest to go ahead and at least get stimulus passed in order to maintain those programs for the unemployed.
Dr. Michael Sadler, thank you so much for your time. We appreciate it.
Thank you for having me, Karina.
So where exactly do things stand with the stimulus deal and any additional relief? For more on that, we want to bring in Irina Diamante, who joins us live from Washington, where she's been following the negotiations. Irina, what can you tell us?
Well, Karina, after months of no progress and 2 weeks after Election Day, negotiations have yet to restart again. Lawmakers can't seem to agree on the scale of this coronavirus relief package, and neither side seems willing to budge. We know that earlier this year, Democratic leaders Chuck Schumer and Nancy Pelosi had sent a letter to Senate Majority Leader Mitch McConnell to join them at the negotiating table. The holdup is over the price tag of a relief bill. Democrats are pushing for a sweeping $2.2 trillion plan, and Republicans say that is too large. They're open to a much slimmer $500 billion package. The narrower Republican legislation includes assistance to small businesses and liability protections for companies. It would be less in federal unemployment benefits compared to the Democrats' plan.
It looks to me like the Speaker, the Democratic leader of the Senate, and former Vice President Biden all have the view that $2.5 trillion or nothing.
You would think that now nearly 250,000 people die, over 11 million infected, that at least now with the prospect, the promise of a vaccine, they might want to implement some of the things that take us down that path.
Karina, as we're getting closer and closer to Inauguration Day, it remains unclear if Congress will be able to pass legislation by then. It seems the results of the election have not pushed either side to yield ground.
Irina, speaking to the election, I mean, what role is President Trump playing in shaping the stimulus talks?
Well, Karina, President Trump continues to not participate in the transfer of power. He and his campaign have been contesting the election results, but with little evidence, their legal challenges have not made any gains. President Trump did tweet earlier that Congress should pass a relief bill that's both big and focused, but that is where the problem lies.
Rena, lastly, President-elect Biden spoke about economic recovery earlier this week. What did he have to say about additional relief?
Karina, in that speech, President-elect Biden said that he wanted Congress to come together and to pass a bill that was similar to the HEROES Act, which the House passed earlier this year. The HEROES Act would reinstate the $600 supplemental jobless benefits that expired earlier this year, and they would provide stimulus checks to eligible Americans. And as that economist you spoke to earlier, Karina, said, there are a number of relief programs that are set to expire later this year, and Congress does have a December 11 deadline to fund the government.
Yeah, a lot of people, a lot of Americans watching this very closely. Rena Diamante reporting there in Washington for us. Thank you very much. To some more promising news, it has been a positive week for vaccines to combat against the coronavirus. Daryl Forges has more on what's next.
COVID cases wreaking havoc across the U.S. Right now, 47 states showing upward trends. On Tuesday, the nation reported almost 162,000 new cases and just over 1,700 deaths.
We are in a war right now, and the virus is winning.
As the virus continues to flood the country, more promising news about a vaccine. Pfizer and BioNTech announced their vaccine is about 95% effective. But one of the biggest hurdles for the country is preparing for distribution of the vaccines once they're available.
There's a lot of work that we need to do very rapidly to make sure that our entire infrastructure is in place to receive these vaccines and do the right education so people can trust these vaccines.
BioNTech says it will file paperwork for the emergency use of its vaccine in the United States on Friday.
I am confident if everything goes well and if we have a well-organized vaccine supply, that we could have a normal winter 2021, normal summer and winter 2021.
Daryl Forges for Capital Tonight.
And still to come on Capital Tonight, as Texas deals with this pandemic, experts are warning about the next, what the state needs to change to be better prepared. Plus, why some prominent Texas Republicans are pushing back against the president's latest firing. Welcome back to Capital Tonight. We may not want to think about another pandemic, but a group of experts is warning Texas needs to make big changes to be ready for the next one. According to a new report from an advisory committee on public health infrastructure, the state needs a dedicated source of tax revenue so it can hire enough scientists and update computer systems. The state also needs to fund training programs for government epidemiologists. The group also says the state should expand broadband access to improve telemedicine options. Joining me now to discuss this further is Bob Garrett, Austin Bureau Chief for the Dallas Morning News. Bob, good to see you. Thanks for being with us. You wrote about this new report. Did the experts specify how to get this new funding source and any new taxes or any new fees?
They did not, Karina. They're going to have to look at that some more, and they promised that they would maybe make some additional recommendations before the legislature gets going.
With what you've seen from this report and what we're looking at here, how likely do you think it is that lawmakers will act on this next legislative session?
Well, you know, the history of this is not good, not very encouraging. The report basically said that Texas has a history of not really valuing a robust public health infrastructure. And there may be occasions like after 9/11 and the anthrax attacks when we ramp up some stuff. But after a few years, we tend to pull the money away and devote it to other purposes. So that's why they want to have a dedicated source of revenue, sort of like we've been doing lately in Texas for transportation.
Yeah, Bob, we're having some troubles. Your shot's freezing a little bit, but we'll continue on. We can hear you, thank goodness. So the report said the public health response to COVID-19 in Texas has been exemplary. What led them to that conclusion?
They said they just really meant the public health officials had overcome some of these problems of archaic IT systems where some of the hospital data was being handwritten and had to be inputted by the state to get data in real time. I questioned whether everybody thinks that the response has been so exemplary because, as you know, we have a lot of local officials who wanted more authority, and we have conservative Republicans who have questioned the governor for overreach.
Yeah, I mean, there's been a lot of bickering between county judges, city leaders, the governor over stay-at-home orders. I mean, do you anticipate any more flexibility from the governor for some of these places seeing some serious COVID spikes?
You know, right now we have 6 different hospital regions that are over his 15%, and the number is growing. Dallas is knocking on the door. I mean, there's 22 of these regions that he's pegged everything to, and it's not unforeseeable, Karina, that in a couple of weeks, half of these 22 regions in the state could be over his 15%. So when he says business is open in Texas, except for these regions, right now it's looking pretty bad. I don't look for Abbott to relent and give Clay Jenkins and Lena Hidalgo more power. But as you saw there, he's under pressure to maybe consider a new approach that doesn't just wait till your hospitals are slammed.
Yeah, lastly, really quickly, Bob, I mean, I know we're going to hear from the governor tomorrow. He's having a press conference about a new antibody treatment, talking a little bit more about that. I mean, I anticipate reporters will ask these questions. Do you anticipate anything from him tomorrow on further restrictions?
No, I don't see that, although, he's kind of acting like Donald Trump, talking about antibody treatments and vaccines are on their way, and happy days will be here sometime soon. But the pressure is going to grow on Greg Abbott as these cases mount, and the hospital regions across the state increasingly look like they're headed toward his 15%.
Bob Garrett, Austin Bureau Chief for the Dallas Morning News. Thank you very much. Always good to have you on the program. And here's a look at some of the other top political stories making headlines today. Governor Abbott is sending state troopers to Dallas to help combat a recent spike in violent crime. Mayor Eric Johnson says the city is nearing a 16-year high in the rate of violent crime. So far this year, Dallas has surpassed the total number of homicides in all of 2019. A bipartisan group of Texas lawmakers is calling on the state's education agency to cancel STAR testing this school year. They say if it must be administered, it should only be used to gather data on how students are doing. The state has yet to decide how the STAR exam will be given and used to rate school districts as the pandemic continues. And some Texas Republicans are criticizing President Trump's firing of an election security official. Chris Krebs publicly contradicted Trump's claims of voting fraud. Now, retiring Congressman Will Hurd is calling Krebs a patriot who should be rewarded, not fired. And Senator John Cornyn told Politico the decision just adds to the chaos. Still ahead on Capitol tonight, how one North Texas teen is drawing political inspiration from Kamala Harris. Plus, Matthew McConaughey running for Texas governor, what he's saying about the possibility. While campaigning this election season, Kamala Harris paid special attention to the young girls who attended her events. That struck a chord with one North Texas teen who says the vice president-elect has inspired her to follow in her footsteps. Our Lupe Zapata introduces us to Haley Taylor Schlitz.
In between her busy schedule of online classes, Haley likes to play piano to de-stress. At 18 years old, she's accomplished a lot. She finished high school at 13, graduated with a bachelor's degree at 16, and after being accepted into 9 law schools, she's a second-year student at SMU's Dedman School of Law.
I think when I graduate law school, I'll be really proud to be able to be Esquire Taylor Schlitz. That sounds really cool to me.
She holds a lot of titles. Just Google her name. She's a proud big sister to her 2 siblings, and as a bold activist for women's rights and racial justice, she's made quite a name for herself. But she didn't work this hard to only get this far. Being a lawyer is not her end goal. She plans to go all the way to the Oval Office. She wants to be president of the United States of America.
School board and city council are definitely places where I want to try to start. Being governor of Texas is a goal of mine that I think is a good stepping stone.
Haley's dream of becoming commander-in-chief seems much more obtainable thanks to this woman, projected Vice President-elect Kamala Harris. In 2019, Haley earned the honor of introducing then-Senator Harris as the featured guest speaker at a town hall meeting held by the Tarrant County Democratic Party.
As a Black girl in America, I can share with you that seeing someone in a position that redefines stereotypes and breaks glass ceilings is powerfully inspiring. For millions of girls like myself, she is Black girl magic.
Since meeting Harris, Haley follows her journey as she's made history by becoming the first female U.S. vice president.
If you listen to her entire story and listen to what people call her being ambitious because she is successful, it really is inspiring.
So inspired, she decided to coin a phrase and put it on a shirt to show support when Harris was being negatively scrutinized as potential choice for vice president.
When I first heard that somebody had called Kamala Harris ambitious, when had she been a male, they would have called her a leader. Okay, so they're trying to be rude. They're trying to she rubs people the wrong way. They're trying to be mean to her. And I was like, no, we can take this word and we can flip it.
Haley plans to see her name on a shirt someday. The earliest she could run for president will be the 2040 election. And she's already planning. She jokingly says Dad will be chief of staff.
I think they're going to let me go on the coffee runs, right? I think they're going to Starbucks and
he's the chief. Everybody listens to him. He's going to be my campaign manager.
Hello, everybody. Today I want to focus on fiduciary duty litigation.
As I watch her study, it's clear to see she has the drive to be a leader. Ambition is the eager desire to achieve or obtain success. And to those who know her best, Haley 2040 isn't that hard to imagine.
And Haley could have some competition in her run for governor. Actor Matthew McConaughey saying during a radio interview Tuesday he'd maybe consider running for the office.
Look, politics seems to be a broken business to me right now. And when politics redefines its purpose, I could be a hell of a lot more interested.
While he hasn't quite said, all right, to the campaign trail yet, you knew that was coming, McConaughey also talked about the presidential election, saying the country has to stabilize first before it can go marching out of this together. That is all the time that we have tonight. Tomorrow we'll be taking a look at some of the newest members of the Texas congressional delegation. Plus, we're continuing our conversation about the state of the Texas economy and the budget battle ahead for state lawmakers. Join us Thursday at 7. Until then, thanks for watching. Have a great night.